Batman Arkham Asylum, a very beloved but also a very old game, 16 years old to be precise. This holds up in very significant facets, but in my opinion, some large criticisms hold it back a lot. Let's start with the game's reputation. This game is cherished, so when criticizing this game I am on very thin ice. This game is generally beloved, but seen as the worst Arkham game. I don't think it's the worst Arkham game. I hold the very unpopular opinion that spot belongs to Arkham City. I also don't think that it entirely holds up. Firstly, let's talk about performance. I experienced no frame drops whatsoever, but it is capped to 30 FPS, which is a problem for modern audiences. Fidelity wise, the game looks incredible for a game that came out 16 years ago, so when you compare it to other games that came out in 2009, like Assassin's Creed 2, Asylum looks fantastic, but when held to today's standards, it doesn't impress. And then the combat. The reason why I start with this part of the game is not because it is the best, but because it is the one that has been explained the most. You have an attack and a counter, and reaching 3 hits or doing a running attack you start free throw mode, which is when the combat really starts. This game, in terms of the normal combat, is the most difficult of any Arkham game because there's no animation cancels. If you get attacked mid-animation, you're cooked. You can get upgrades that allow you to throw an enemy for crowd control, or take one out. You can do one of these moves with a combo of 8, but this can be reduced to 5 with another upgrade. Critical strikes are yet another upgrade that add 2 hits to the combo meter when you time your strikes and not spam. These strikes are a good way to incentivize you to not spam, and it's one of the genius ways this game nudges you towards playing in a fun way. During the game, new enemies are introduced that make you take them out in a specific way. The stun rod enemies make you jump over them and attack them from behind, and the knife enemies have to be cape stunned. Although these enemies are not a threat on their own, when they're integrated in big groups of normal enemies, it can be hard to focus on them, and that is where the difficulty really comes from. I love this combat system, and the only thing holding it back is the improvements made in the sequels. And now the boss fights. These are slightly disappointing. Let's start with a very common critique, which is that there are too many Titan boss fights. The first boss fight is a Titan. The second boss fight is Bane, who looks dope, but is really just a Titan. Here are 2 Titans. Here's a Titan with a couple extra enemies. And here are 2 Titans again. I absolutely agree with this criticism. These Titans are not fun to fight and way overdone. The other bosses are fine, if not slightly underwhelming. First we have Victor Zsasz, who's not really a boss fight but a tutorial. Then we have Scarecrow, whose deadly gaze you have to avoid. You fight him 3 times and eventually even skeletons that he spawns. Harley Quinn makes you fight her lackeys and then take her down, which looks hilarious. These are fun at first, but get repetitive, at least the short battles. Then we have Killer Croc, who is not really a fight, but a chase sequence. But it's the best boss in the game in my opinion. I remember doing this part when I was younger and being so scared, it's like a horror sequence. You have to go around slowly and follow a tracker to get samples, while Croc breaks the platforms around you and pops out of the water sometimes, and you have to throw a batarang at him. Then there's Ivy, who is boring to fight. Just spam batarangs while fighting her goons. And then the final boss, Joker, obviously. The design is awesome, but the fight itself is pretty bad. You fight normal goons, not even an interesting fight, and then dodge Joker, and then pull him down from the podium and hit him a couple times. This fight is not bad, but it is anticlimactic as hell. This brings me to the pacing of the game, which is fantastic. You are always moving from memorable point to memorable point. This game has almost no bloat, and that is something I wish more modern games would do. This game is beaten in about 10 hours. The stealth is very fun, but eventually frustrating. Call this a skill issue, but I die for stupid reasons all the time. I'll explain the stealth first. Some rooms have enemies with guns, and trying to fight these will end badly, so you have a silent takedown that takes obnoxiously long. There are gargoyles in every stealth room where you can hide from the enemies. From these vantage points you can do an inverted takedown, which was my best friend during the stealth encounters. There's also something which I also find annoying in stealth games, which is that the enemies sometimes just turn around. Later the stealth gets way harder and the enemies start having collars that will make sounds when the enemy is taken down that will alert the others present. in the room, and there's even an encounter where you can't use the gargoyles. The reason why I call this frustrating is because you die for stupid reasons so often. It just gets annoying.
Always gives me the creeps.
You have a varied arsenal of gadgets, including the batarang, the line launcher,
What the hell is the bat?
and the cryptographic sequencer. The sequencer is actually terrible. Every time you use it, you have to do this small mini-game, but they get so tedious. There's even parts where you use it 3 times in a row. And if one batarang is not enough, you can have 2, which is completely useless. And if that's not enough, you can even get 3! Mostly in the stealth and exploration does the main problem in Asylum start to rear its ugly head. The most annoying thing in this game, which can definitely be attributed to the fact that it's just an old game, is how stiff and unresponsive the controls are. Running has this annoying following camera, which always results in me running the wrong direction. Gliding is so stiff and it's hard to maneuver, which means you will always land in the wrong spot during stealth encounters. In combat, the controls aren't as bad, but the magnetism is just way too strong, making you attack enemies you don't want to, and the lack of animation cancelling doesn't help with this. Severe lack of settings also doesn't help. You can't change camera speed, how the camera follows you, and other important things are also left out. The Arkham games have never been good at this, I guess. The Asylum itself is wonderfully designed. Anyone that has played the game knows it has a haunting atmosphere. Everything from the scenery to the psychos that will eventually cover the Asylum creates such a horror-like aesthetic. There's even a popular suicide spot for the inmates. During the game, the Asylum becomes darker and more abandoned. At the start, it seems that the guards have it under control, but later, the guards will die. Ivy's plans will infest the island, and psychopaths will cover the entirety of the island. There's a common complaint though, and that is that the game incentivizes you to stay in detective mode for large parts of the game, and that makes the game look quite ugly. This brings me right to the main story. It starts how many Batman stories start, with the Joker. But this time, you start after having caught Joker, and bringing him to the Asylum. Apparently it was suspiciously easy to catch him this time, and Joker points out that a fire in Blackgate Prison caused many of his men to be transferred to the Asylum. Joker escapes, of course. I don't understand why they sent Joker with just one guard and an incompetent doctor. Harley has already conquered the Asylum and has full control over the electric door, so Joker gets away. In the patient tapes, you see how Joker seduced Harley into letting him escape.
Where's Gordon?
While chasing Joker, you find Zsasz threatening a CEO. Zsasz is a nihilist and talks about the lack of meaning in life during his patient tapes. He justifies his murder spree as setting people free from the endless grind that life can be. Find Joker, and he sends an experimental Titan onto Batman, but the Titan has a heart attack. Joker tempts Batman into killing him, and Batman obviously declines. He rescues some doctors, and we later find out that Dr. Young has been making Joker's Titan serum without knowing it. Once Joker was in the Asylum, he blackmailed her into shutting up. This detail is found in the patient interviews. Joker wants a private army of massive goons. You find Bane strapped in the basement of the Asylum, and it's clear they got the Titan serum from Bane, but without needing a massive pump on his back. To counteract the serum, Batman believes he needs a plant, but he doesn't know which one, so he goes to Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy displays her ability to hypnotize people in her patient interviews, and she believes that killing people is righteous because they kill plants, and humans are not worth more than plants. Ivy says that the antidote is in Killer Croc's lair. You get drugged by Scarecrow for the 3rd time, and you play the intro sequence as Joker, and there's even a middle stick. Just horrifying. Killer Croc doesn't really have interesting details in his interviews. He tries to escape and makes jokes about eating people. You escape his lair, and he eats Scarecrow. After getting the antidote, you realize that Ivy escaped and grew toxic plants all over the island. When confronting her, she tries to fight you, and you demolish her. After this, you get invited to Joker's party, where he injects you with the Titan Serum and then himself. Batman only made one dose of the antidote and he uses it on himself. You fight Titan Joker and you beat him, all is well. You might realize that I'm leaving out some parts, but this summary has already taken far too long. There is one more fascinating part to the story, which has to do with the current director of the asylum, Quincy Sharp, and his fascination with the person who started the asylum, Amadeus Arkham. Amadeus was the son of a powerful man who was part of an influential family. Amadeus' father died of a disease, and his mother was in a coma for a long time. His wife and daughter would later be killed. When he saw the man who did it, he realized that some people are dogs, and these people need help. This is when he started the asylum. After years of treatment of the killer, he seemed sane and talked about longing for fresh air, and then he killed a man with a fountain pen before the guards beat him to a pulp. Amadeus became more and more insane himself and eventually beat up a schizophrenic patient, and he beat him so hard he beat him to death. And he enjoyed his pleas for help. Amadeus believed it was righteous to hurt and torture people to save others. Amadeus would eventually become a patient in his own asylum. The later entries talked about newer inmates and mostly the Joker, and eventually it is revealed that the writer is now Quincy Sharp and no longer Amadeus. Quincy became obsessed with Amadeus, and he wanted to continue his mission to save the world from the insane. He called himself the Spirit of Arkham. He would later start killing patients and became insane himself. This is, to me, the most interesting part of the story, and that's why I went on and on about it. This review is pretty long for me, and if you reached it this far, I thank you very much.